Below the surface, Surath breathed. Not the passive stillness of a ruin, something rhythmic, something that knew they were there. Okay, so hear me out. Drowning was never specifically on my list of preferred exits. Just for the record. The record is noted. The gate is open. We go down before Lysara's next wave arrives and makes the decision for us. I was given this. I will give it. A skin of breathable depth, infernal and divine, woven thin as memory. 30 minutes. I am, I will have been generous. The sensation Mira described later was a fist closing around her lungs from the inside, then warmth spreading outward, and Karath pulling back only because she drove her will against his like a blade. It is done. The ward holds for all three. Touch my shoulder before you go under. It transfers on contact. And if he tries that again mid-dive, I will drown us myself before I let him steer. Gale's bandage had slipped. He hadn't rewrapped it. The script was past his elbow, past the mid-arm, eating toward something it could not yet reach but clearly intended to. Okay, so hear me out. I'm not going to make a joke about this one. I just needed a second to look at it. By what remains of my oath, you will not be unmade today. We go down, we come back up. That is the only sequence I am willing to accept. Surath had not merely drowned. It had been preserved. Each pew, each carved saint's face, each suspended note of silence exactly where it fell when the water came. A city-sized reliquary for something that refused to be forgotten. How delightfully catastrophic. It's still intact, every stone, like it was set here on purpose. It had been waiting, not pacing, not searching, simply standing before the shard with the patience of something built rather than born, positioned there by someone who had known exactly where the trio would come. That is not a natural construct. The celestial script, it's the same class as Lysara's judgment runes. She placed this here, before we ever reached the Delta. Okay, so hear me out. Whatever we do next, we have maybe 20 minutes of air left and a cathedral-sized problem between us and the one thing that keeps me alive. So, ideas? Surath's drowned nave stretched 50 yards in either direction. Choir stalls rotting into silt, blue-white light bleeding from cracks in the floor. And at its center, filling the space between altar and nave, like a collapsed tower made animate, the warden turned. Okay, so hear me out. That thing is roughly the size of a building, yes? Just want to confirm everyone else is seeing the building-sized nightmare. I see it. Hold position until we know what it leads with. The disc face split like a wound. The beam arrived before sound did, a white verdict carved through the floor between them and the altar, and the water turned to steam in a pillar where it struck. It's a command weapon. It's measuring range before targeting. We have seconds. Karath. I was present when that architecture was designed. I am knowing its seams. Give me your throat, Mira Ashvale. Now! Now! Every prior possession had been a seizure. Karath crashing in, Mira slamming the door. This time she found the latch. This time she opened it herself. Quiet, controlled, how delightfully catastrophic. Fine, come in. But you leave when I say. I was grateful. I am grateful. I will have been grateful. You do not know what it costs me that I need this of you. Karath's cadence bleeding into hers, voice splitting into double register. Then make it count. The erased god's memory broke against the construct like a tide breaking a cliff, not destroying it, but finding every crack age had hidden. The outer shell came apart in slow, silent arcs of bone through black water. Okay, so hear me out. I jam the scripture lock in its chest, and you two hit the core while it can't reconfigure. This either works or I lose the arm entirely. So, spoken like an oath he stopped believing in and starts again. By what remains of my oath, by whatever is left of what I swore, I name you construct, I name you instrument, and I unmake your authority. The oath word hit the scripture core like a key. Not the paladin's power, he had none left. Just the word itself, spoken honestly by a man with nothing left to prove it with. The shard did not wait to be taken. It crossed the 15 feet of black water and pressed itself into Kale's open palm, into the seal token scar, like a key fitting a lock that had been cut for it centuries before he was born. Very quiet. It stopped. The script, it's not moving. I can feel where it was eating and it just stopped. Horse fully gone now. Don't mistake paused for healed. And Kale, I'm glad it stopped. The ward. It's thinning. We have minutes of breath left, and Lysara knows exactly where we are. 17 fathoms of drowned memory released them. They surfaced into fog and silence, and found neither comfort in either. Okay, so hear me out. Hear me out. I just touched a god shard with my cursed hand, and it stopped. It actually stopped. That is, I cannot fully process that while drowning. It halted. It didn't reverse. There's a distinction, and you should absolutely obsess over it later when we are not in open water. She had not rushed. She had simply arrived, the way judgment arrives, not in a hurry because it was never in doubt. The court has already decided. You carry 2 marks now, thief. The shard does not pardon, it compounds. Surrender, or the water becomes your burial. By what remains of my oath, you placed that construct before we ever found the city. You were never here to stop us. You were here to bury us with it. Slight pause. The closest she comes to acknowledgement. The court anticipates. That is not treachery. That is administration. The construct's scripture residue is still resonant in the water. How delightfully catastrophic. It makes excellent ammunition. She pushed the shard bond's infernal resonance downward like a fist, and 17 fathoms below, the dead Warden construct's scripture detonated upward in a column of cold blue-white fire. You weaponized the thing that almost killed us. Using the thing it almost killed me with, I want to be horrified, and I am completely failing. Karath did not ask. He came through both of them at once, the first time he had ever split himself across 2 hosts, and the water became irrelevant. From 2 sources simultaneously, I was the crossing. I am the crossing. I will have been enough. Hold. I have you. Both of you. Do not let go. By what remains of my oath, do not let go. Lysara's column was scattered but not broken. They had 60 seconds, perhaps 90. Karath used them all. Resonant, grieving, both before and after. Surath was not drowned for heresy. Its choir sang a single hymn that named what the Pantheon had done to me, and the Pantheon called that hymn a weapon. The shard held their voices. Keel Dunmore now holds their voices. Okay, so hear me out. I can already hear them. Faint, like someone humming through stone walls. Is that going to get louder? Yes. And what they sing is a map. I will have been, patient. The Ashfin fog closed over them like a burial shroud. Lysara's wardens had lost the barge and the channel split, but lost was not gone, and the trio knew the difference. Okay, so hear me out. We just fought a cathedral-sized bone construct 17 fathoms underwater, and I am still alive. That has to count for something cosmically. Your script stopped at your shoulder, not your heart. Don't confuse postponement with survival. How delightfully catastrophic it would be to celebrate now. The merged shard pulsed in Seal's palm, and Karath rose through it, not through Mira this time. The shift was palpable, like a voice changing rooms. Resonant overlap, words doubling themselves. The 3rd shard is, will be beneath the war throne of Greven Sult, Ashkar's warlord king. He does not know what his throne sits upon. He only knows it does not break. Prestrai, a warlord king, a war throne, the city of Ashkar. How delightfully catastrophic. You've saved the most heavily armed city on the continent for our 3rd errand. I will have been, patient. You will not be. Ashkar remembers those who bleed on its stones. The name Ashkar landed on Aldric like a stone dropped into still water. Mira saw the ripple before he could suppress it. You know that city. Not the way a traveler knows a road, the way someone knows a wound. I was court-martialed in Ashkar 3 years ago. My crest was taken in that city's garrison square before the warlord's own adjutants. And your name? In Vel's kingdom, is it known? It is not known. It is spoken as a warning. By what remains of my oath, I will not pretend otherwise. Measured each word a stone set in mortar. I was assigned escort to a celestial envoy in Ashkar. I did not know who she was. She ordered me to execute a civilian, a Cartwright's boy, who had witnessed her arrival. She named it administrative necessity. quiet, and you refused. I put my sword between the boy and the order. The envoy had my crest struck that evening. I learned later, the envoy was Lysara. The test was loyalty to the court, not to mercy. I failed her test. I have not yet decided that was wrong. Lo, stripped of irony for one sentence. You protected a child from a god's assassin. How delightfully catastrophic. That is exactly the kind of thing that gets people like us into situations like this. Kale said nothing more. He pressed his sealed palm flat against his chest, just below the throat. The same gesture Mira sometimes made without noticing, and stared at the approaching bank. Lysara stood at the basin's far edge, alone. No wardens, no drawn blade. She watched them climb ashore the way a cartographer watches a border being crossed, recording, not chasing. Okay, so, hear me out. Why is she not following us? That is somehow worse than if she were following us. Because Ash does the work for her. She doesn't need to pursue us into a city that already wants Aldric dead. How delightfully catastrophic. She's hurting us. Then we enter Ashkar before she arrives. By what remains of my oath, we do not give her time to set the trap. The signpost's carved arrow pointed west into the kingdom of Vel. Vel's capital, Ashkar, a warlord's throne. A shard the warlord did not know he owned. And a name the city remembered like a wound remembers a blade. The stolen barge drifted back into the Ashvan fog without ceremony, carrying nothing but waterlogged silence. They had crossed out of the marshlands and into something older and colder, the border of a kingdom that had not forgotten. Okay, so hear me out. We've survived a drowned city, a scripture-faced nightmare, and a seraph with a grudge. How bad can one kingdom be? Ask Aldric. He helped them decide. Old, I know that face. Court-martial at Ashkar 3 years past, apostate vein. By what remains of my oath, I am passing through. Nothing more. Quiet, fingers already burning faintly at her side. How delightfully catastrophic it would be if this notice caught fire before you finished reading it, Sergeant. Parchment is so fragile in damp weather. The wanted notice curled at the edges, browned, and crumbled into ash in 3 seconds. Orath stared at the empty nail. He stepped aside without another word, and reached for nothing at his belt. The choir of Surath had been dead for 400 years. That did not stop them from singing inside Kale's skull. The shard remembered everything the city had ever known, and it had decided Tale was a suitable archive. Disoriented. Okay, I just saw a room I've never been in, full of people singing a word I don't have a mouth for. Okay, so hear me out. That's not normal, is it? Dry, but watching him closely. The shard bonded to you carries a city's last memory. It will use whatever vessel it has. Try not to lose yourself in someone else's hymn. Voice did not come through Mira. It did not seize a body. It arrived as heat in Kale's fused palm, and sound that the wind shouldn't have been able to carry. And for the first time, it spoke without taking anything. I was in that throne before the warlord sat upon it. I will have been in the fires he started with what he does not understand. The shard he wields, he uses memory as artillery. Every strike erases something. A name, a face, a reason the war began. So the warlord is weaponizing a godstone shard without knowing it, and the side effects are literal amnesia across a war front. How delightfully catastrophic. And we need to walk into that. I was. If the shard fractures further under his use, the memory it holds will not be recoverable. I will have lost it. Go quickly. Aldric stopped at the ridge's crest. Ashkar lay ahead in the afternoon haze, its smoke-black towers in the market district where his crest had been scraped from his pauldron before a crowd that did not look away. He had not looked away either. Barely above a whisper himself. By what remains of my oath, this is what it was for. Hey, we've walked into worse, we walked out of worse. Okay, so, hear me out, we do it again. Mira said nothing. She walked past Aldric without slowing, coat trailing in the road dust, shard scar casting a faint fractal light forward, like a lantern that had chosen its own direction. After a moment, the sound of heavy boots followed her down the hill. Ashkar did not welcome them. It assessed them, the way a trap assesses weight. The ward runes at the War District gate hummed at a frequency that tasted of old judgment. Okay, so hear me out. I press the palm, the gate opens, nobody asks why a wanted man's face is right there in the poster beside the arch. Smooth, seamless. I am a professional. The poster is on your left, you are walking on the right. How delightfully catastrophic your spatial awareness is. Move. By what remains of my oath we argue inside the walls or not at all. The soldier's name was Davin. Aldric did not remember it, but the face was the face of a man who had stood in the back of the court-martial hall and said nothing while everything was decided. Measured, Davin. I'm not here for Vel. I'm not here for what happened in that hall. Step aside. The choir they're all singing at once. Okay, so hear me out. I need 30 seconds and a wall to lean on. The soldier steps aside now, or I demonstrate why the warrant on the paladin mentions he travels with a half-demon. Your choice is fast or permanent. Mira sent her infernal awareness through the iron like smoke through a keyhole. What she found on the other side made her press her forehead against the door and breathe through her teeth. The shard beneath his seat is awake. It was always awake. The warlord believes the throne made him. I was. I am. I will have been. He does not understand what has been making him, only that he has never lost a battle he cared to win. Eyes still closed. His irises are cracking gold. The shard energy is in his bloodstream. How delightfully catastrophic. We are not retrieving a relic. We are separating an addict from the only thing keeping him standing. Then we give him a reason to stand on his own. By what remains of my oath, I will face him. You extract the shard, both tasks, no debate. Raven Salt had not needed to descend from his throne in 3 years. Whatever lived in the stone beneath it had always told him who was coming and whether they deserved to die standing or kneeling. It told him nothing about these three, and that was the most dangerous thing it had ever said. Vel does not negotiate. Vel consumes. The gold in my eyes is older than your god, apostate. Whatever you came to take from this room, it has already decided you are not worthy. I was declared unworthy 3 years ago in this city. It did not stop me then. By what remains of my oath, you will face me, Salt. Only me. Okay, so hear me out. That was genuinely impressive, and I am absolutely terrified. Both things. Mira cut her palm to the bone and pressed it into the fractures. The Blood-Tithe was a conversation, not a prayer. The shard beneath the stone heard her infernal half first, and did not like what it tasted. Teeth gritted. You chose Kale's hand because it was already marked. Fine, I am marked too. How delightfully catastrophic, we have that in common. Come out of the stone. The shard surged upward through the cracks and tore into her already burning sternum scar. She swallowed the scream. Salt across the room howled as something he had carried for 3 years was ripped from his blood, and he did not stop fighting. Overlapping echo through the shard itself. Incomplete. The tithe is incomplete. I was. I am. I will have been. The warlord's blood is in it. You need all 3 before it seals. He must choose to release it. He will not choose. The shard beneath Greven Salt's throne had been feeding him for 3 years. It had made him faster, stronger, utterly unable to lose, and entirely unable to stop. Contemptuous, gold-fractured eyes locked on the paladin. You carry an empty title into my hall. Disgraced men have no standing to refuse Vel. Vel does not negotiate. Vel consumes. Steady, watching the warlord's feet knot his blade. By what remains of my oath, I know what a corrupted man looks like when he charges. You have never learned to hesitate. That is the tell. Rage breaking. A flicker of the man beneath, staring at his trembling empty hand. What is it doing to me? I can feel it. Something under the throne it has been for years it has been. Lowering his sword, voice stripped of all ceremony. You were not a monster when you sat down. The throne made you one. By what remains of my oath, I will not kill what the shard created if the man beneath it still breathes. Tight from the corridor doorway, hand pressed to fused. Okay, hear me out. Whatever Mira is doing down there needs to happen in the next 30 seconds because I can feel the shard waking up and it is extremely loud in my head right now. Surath's choir had drowned, singing a truth the gods could not permit. Now that truth lived in Kale's merged shard, and the throne room heard every word of it at once. Overlapping resonance, present before and after the sound. I was, I am, I will have been. The Pantheon unmade what it feared would be remembered. Now 3 pieces of that memory walk. They cannot erase what has already been carried. Barely above a whisper, only to the silhouette, only to Karath, I heard what you said, what they feared you remembered. Say it again, clearly, now while you can hold the form. Quiet, humor gone, watching the torch lines through the window. Okay, so hear me out. Those are not city guards. That formation is seraph precision spacing. She is already inside the walls. Carrying Mira, eyes forward, voice stripped to its frame. By what remains of my oath, we move, you lead. I will not put her down. 3 shards recovered, 1 god slowly remembering himself. And Lysara had entered Ashkar, not with an advanced scout, but with a full company and something new at her side, something that had not been there before. Lysara did not hurry. The Undying Court had never needed to hurry. Ashkar's eastern gate burned behind her wardens as they entered, and she walked through the smoke as though it were incense offered in her honor. Seal the western drainage access. They will run for the low tunnels. They always do. The court has already decided where this ends. Aldric did not set Mira down. He had not set her down since the throne room. The weight was nothing compared to what she had paid for 3 shards now, locked in bone and scar and merged palm. Okay, so hear me out. I keep seeing the inside of a drowned choir hall every step I take. Is that going to stop, or is that my life now? Focus on the next 10 feet. The visions do not kill you. Lysara does. Move. Granary offered 3 walls and no exit. Lysara filled the 4th. Flamonial, Sir Aldric Vane. This is the last offer the court will make. Surrender the shard-bearer. Walk away, you and the marked bard. The court has already decided the warlock cannot be permitted to continue. Measured? By what remains of my oath, which you know better than most, I will not hand her to you. Not for pardon, not for Seal's life, not for mine. For the record, Aldric just spoke for me without asking, but yeah, what he said, every word. Okay, so, hear me out. We'd really rather not die today. Mira woke to someone else offering to hand her over. She decided that was the last time anyone would do that on her behalf. Low, precise, incandescent with fury. How delightfully catastrophic that you thought I needed to be surrendered. I am the shard. The shard is me, and I have 3 of them now, Inquisitor. Overlapping echo, bleeding from the shardlight. She was, she is. She will have been, the vessel the court cannot unmake without unmaking what it fears most. Show her. The shard pulse detonated outward, blue-white fractal light cracking the granary's remaining walls, driving every warden to one knee. Mira's teeth were red. One of the shards in her sternum scar had cracked under the pressure. She did not tell the others. Lysara did not pursue. She stood in the rubble of the granary and watched the tunnel swallow them, and for a long moment said nothing. The wardens waited. Flat, quiet, heavier than before. Relay to the court. 3 shards are bonded, carrier compromised, god fragment partially coherent. The offer period is closed. The court has already decided. Issue the kill sanction. All 3. In the tunnel, Kale's merged shard pulsed once, warm, certain, like a heartbeat that had heard its own death sentence read aloud. He said nothing. He kept walking. They emerged from Ashkar's drains an hour before dawn. 3/5 of a broken god's body carried between 3 bleeding people. The marshland offered no comfort, only distance and the thin mercy of fog. Okay, so hear me out. I think the glowing is getting worse. Just a casual observation. No cause for alarm. Entirely controllable, I'm sure. It's cracked. The shard bond cracked when I detonated in the granary. I can't close it. Karath came without being called, drawn by proximity of 3 shards and the cracked bond's open wound of light. His manifestation was steadier than it had ever been. That was not comforting. The 4th shard is bonded, has been bonded since before you were born. It lives inside a woman named Aria Voss, saint of the Undying Court. She has carried it since birth. It is the structural anchor of her soul. I was. I am. I will have been, and I tell you this because you cannot claim it without knowing the cost. Define cost. Overlapping echo flat. Extracting it will kill her. The shard is not inside Ariavos. Ariavos is built around the shard. How delightfully. No, there is no delight in this. Only what was and what must follow. Aldric. Karath told me before he faded, the extraction kills the saint. I'm telling you now because Kale has less than 1 day, and you need to decide before sentiment decides for you. By what remains of my oath, you held that knowledge and measured it like a wager. A woman's life. We do not trade innocent lives for this mission. Okay, so hear me out. I'm the one dying here. So statistically, I have an interest in this conversation, but I am also genuinely, I mean this, not asking anyone to kill a saint for me. I'm saying that out loud right now. Clipped and hollow. I know. I know you're not. That's why I can't answer yet. By what remains of my oath, I don't know if there's enough left to answer with. The flare went up at full morning, cold white celestial fire, the color of a verdict. Lysara was marking their bearing for converging Warden units. She no longer needed to chase. She needed only to contain. That's a lovely flare. Very professional. I appreciate the commitment to craft. Move. The sanctum of the Undying Court is 2 hours northwest. How delightfully catastrophic. We are walking directly toward the institution that wants us dead. The sanctum doors were open, not broken, not forced, open as if by invitation. And in the doorway stood a woman in white, hands folded, eyes shut, with the particular stillness of someone who has been waiting not for hours, but for years. Okay, so hear me out. She already knows, doesn't she? She already knows all of it. Barely audible. The shard inside her would have felt the other 3 shards bond. She'd have felt us coming since Surath. Very quiet, formal, broken at the edges. By what remains of my oath, I will not let us enter that threshold without speaking first to her. Whatever she answers as a person, not a vessel. The sanctum's outer gate stood open. No wardens, no acolytes. Only a woman in white robes waiting at the threshold with the patience of someone who had been counting down to this morning for decades. I have been waiting a very long time. Come inside before the light finds us. The eastern hills are unkind this morning. Okay, so hear me out. This is exactly the part of the story where the door that opens by itself is not good news. Gentle, certain. I have called it my second heartbeat since I was 9 years old. The court's physicians attributed it to a divine blessing. I allowed them to believe that. You heard Karath's voice. In dreams first, then waking hours. A man who does not experience time the way the rest of us do, speaking in circles that somehow always arrive at the same point. He told me you would come. He told me what it would cost. By what remains of my oath, we are not here to execute a saint. The shard is the structural anchor of her soul. Karath told me before we left the drainage tunnels, extracting it severs that anchor. She does not survive it. Stripped bare of every joke, you knew. Before we walked in here, you already knew. And you, Mira? How delightfully catastrophic. Yes, I knew. And I also knew that the alternative is you unmade by midnight, so someone had to keep moving. Calmly from behind them, she is correct on both counts. I confirmed it myself 3 years ago. You need not argue over who carried the news. I have had time to make my peace with it. The Nullstone walls did what they were built to do. They held Karath here, present, coherent, more fully himself than any of them had ever witnessed. And the thing he chose to do with that clarity was grieve. Overlapping resonance, both devastated and ancient. I was the one who set it inside you, child, not knowing what it would cost. I am, I will have been. Sorry, you are owed that word, and I have owed it longer than your name has existed. Looking up at the silhouette, I know, I forgave you in the 37th year of carrying it. You may ask. Fracturing slightly at the edges. May I have it back, please? Arya, may I have what I lost? Arya did not wait for ceremony. She pressed her palm to Mira's shard scar and began the Blood-Tithe herself, with the steady, deliberate motion of someone who had rehearsed the gesture 10,000 times in private. The erasure script on Kale's arm stopped crawling, barely above a whisper. It stopped. Okay, so hear me out. Is that good, or is that just the part before something worse? Holding the old woman's hand steady against her sternum, voice stripped of all sarcasm, it means she's already begun. Don't speak. Don't move. Let her finish. At the door, sword leveled toward the eastern window, voice like stone on stone. By what remains of my oath, she will have time to finish. Whatever comes through that gate will come through me first.